Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George, and who is that to my right?
Alex.
Alex.
Welcome, Alex.
You've been on the live streams a few times.
They've seen my face.
You pop in.
They know who I am.
They can put a face to this voice, and there's a reason why we have you here today. You said you're a pseudo, but we think you're a full-on serial killer expert.
Yes, we're tagging in...
Without having a PhD of some sort, maybe.
You're very knowledgeable of serial killers, and we've never done a... Have we done a nonfiction review?
We almost did, but then we scrapped it.
Okay.
Because we looked at it and we went, it didn't feel right. It was basically me. It was basically me talking about how I queezed my way through the Death Museum.
That's right.
And we were like, it just wasn't a good episode, so we were like,
That's right.
we'll can it. It's somewhere, but...
You should have had me on that one because I thoroughly enjoyed the Death Museum.
We'll have to do another one.
We definitely should add you.
Well, George has to go through it first.
Oh, we should take everyone. We should do
a
weekly field trip.
I can't do it.
Nick's back. Nick's back.
We'll be fine.
I don't want to do it. But I did it. But this week, we're talking about the Bundy Tapes. The Ted Bundy Tapes.
Yes, Netflix's companion piece to the upcoming, what's it like, Extremely Close and Shockingly Vile? Whatever the hell.
George.
Whatever the hell.
No!
Extremely wicked, smelly and vile.
Shockingly evil, which coincidentally, not coincidentally at all, that movie title is what
it's a quote from the judge, yeah.
Yeah, with the judge, which I thought was
is
so
one of the
interesting.
stars of the documentary, by the way.
I disagree. I agree, but I also disagree where we have to talk about his ruling, his sentencing,
I can't wait
because
to
it
get
was
to that.
creepy.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it was creepy.
Extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile. Wow.
That's a cool title.
What a review.
I like that.
Review. Yeah, so we're gonna get into it. So let's talk about it as a movie first, and then we'll move on to talk about Ted Bundy and serial killing in general.
I will say the great thing that this documentary has already brought in is the photoshopped photos that say the Al Bundy tapes. And they have Al Bundy from Married with Children. He's like with his eyes rolled up.
Oh my god.
That was inevitable.
It was my favorite thing in the world.
That's really good.
So let's jump into it. It's a 4-part series.
Yes.
Each episode's like 50 minutes, an hour long.
Yeah, it's
Something
4
like
hours
that.
total, right? Basically.
It's super easy to get through.
Yes, totally.
Just a Titanic.
That's how for people who don't know, I measure a lot. I measure when I used to work in production. Like, I remember I was sitting there on the set of we were working on Hell's Kitchen, and you work 12, 14-hour days, and I'd be like, okay, how many times could I watch Titanic before I get to go home?
Right.
And so I'd be like, people would be
One
like,
Titanic,
yeah,
two
I'd be
Titanics.
like, I'm one Titanic away from going home.
So Titanic's a unit of measurement.
It
Yes.
is. It can be. I feel like it's a good unit of measurement, especially for movies.
I feel like that's right.
Because it's like 4 hours and it feels like 4 hours.
Yes.
Is it 4 hours? I thought it was 2.5.
I remember that it was split into 2 VHS tapes.
Yeah, but VHS
That's
is
got to be
fine.
like 4 hours.
It feels like 10.
Yeah, it does.
I always went with 2.5. That was my gut. 2.5 hours, maybe 3. We can squeeze it 3.
All
I'm
right,
not
we're
sure.
gonna
We'll get the
So that
official.
we know.
She got
okay,
the uncut.
it's only 3 hours and 15 minutes.
3 hours and 15 minutes. That's good. That's
this is a Titanic and a couple lifeboats long.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yes.
That's all they had. A couple lifeboats.
That's fine. So that's totally good. So we all like true crime documentaries, right? So how do we stack this compared to other ones we've seen?
Well, if you're not like serial killers, if you're fascinated by serial killers, I feel like that's like the only thing it's got going for it. If you're just looking for true crime, then you're going to be disappointed because there's no mystery.
True. Right.
There's no whodunit. He did it.
Well, see that, but here's that's the first weird thing I think that I noticed from looking at kind of how people were talking about it online. It's ambitious. They're calling it the definitive telling of Ted Bundy's story.
They are?
Right? Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's him talking, so...
Well, the thing is, let's talk. So the structure of it is it's in 2 timelines, right? Mm-hmm. We're doing the tape interview, and following the journalist who got him to talk on the tapes with that unique trick of saying, "Hey, why don't you talk about crimes in third person, like the OJ if I did it?"
Yeah.
Right. And then
You're the expert.
And then we're also telling the entire story chronologically of Ted Bundy's life and career as a serial killer. So there's these two tracks, right? And we're jumping back and forth in time.
Yeah, you got these two parallels just boom, 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 boom,
Totally.
like ping-ponging back and forth.
And one interesting thing I thought that really struck me was there's a quote from Ted Bundy early in the movie where he says, when he's first doing the tapes, and he says, I love dates and timelines and chronology. And the movie's structured that way. Mm-hmm. The dates start coming up literally after he says that quote. And I feel like that was on purpose. They were like, well, that's how his mind works, so we'll do it like that, right?
Yeah. Funny enough, I was having a hard time following the chronology of, like, because they kept on doing this thing where they were, like, fast-forwarding and rewinding.
Me too, yeah.
And I had no idea where we were in time.
Totally.
I got very confused.
And that's why I brought it up, is I think that there's a lot of people who don't know anything about Ted Bundy but the name and some vague notion that he was a bad person. And this movie catches them all up. So there is mystery to a lot of people, I think, more than I suspected.
I didn't know his numbers were up in like the 30s.
Right.
I didn't know it was like that.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things I didn't know. I didn't know he had a kid.
I didn't know he had a kid, and then I tried to find his kid on the Google, and I couldn't find anything about his kid. So I was like, I want to know more about the family. Why don't we have a documentary about that?
Right.
That would be good. But yeah, the chronology thing, I was actually having trouble following, and I felt like, so the thing is, like, the tapes, I mean, I thought they were kind of interesting, but, like, not enough to drive 4 episodes of something. So I felt like they did a good job of showing you how delusional this person was, but it was just like listening to a very mentally ill person talk.
That's
for however many months.
Well, you're right. The tapes itself weren't that interesting. That's why I liked how the two timelines ran with each other. So like they complemented each other. So he would say one thing like that was completely delusional, and then you have like the cop or the detective who's like, no, he's full of shit.
The first 2 episodes start with framing devices. So the first one's about the 70s, and the second one's about like feminism and like kind of like the Woodstock movement and all that stuff. That's how they start. Mm-hmm. So like I feel like the movie was a bigger. I feel like part of me likes the part of the movie that was giving you the record of what was happening in America at that time as much as the serial killing.
That's what we talked about before yesterday. Me and George were talking in the Facebook chat, and that was one of the things I said I liked about it, was this. It felt like a time capsule. Just like it felt like watching like the History Channel, like watching like the big movements and like the fashion and the slang.
Right, and like, you know, what was interesting too is just because I think it was interesting to see how technology has affected crime and like our ability to solve crimes, because part of Ted Bundy being so good at what he was, sort of doing, murdering people, was the fact that he caught, it wouldn't work today, because he very quickly caught on that he could go to different states and kill people and nobody would find out, because the precincts weren't communicating with each other well, because there was no central database, there were no cell phones, there was no way for them to really talk to each other about what was going on.
Right.
Minus maybe not including being able to put it on the national news or something, but.
And even when they did that, it didn't really work. He was FBI's 10 most wanted. He gets arrested in Florida, and they didn't know who he was for 3 days.
Well, and what's interesting, I wonder, too, if it plays into it, because the time they didn't really know what a serial killer was.
Right.
But even now, there's a shocking number of serial killers active in the country at any one time, but the police don't come out and say that things are serial killer. They don't say that it's serial murder,
right? Because
they don't want to send the public into a frenzy. But I think that there was a guy, I was researching this the other day, but there are as many as 2,000 active serial killers in the country, like right now.
At the end of the documentary, I actually Googled FBI's top 10 list, and you can look at all the people who have ever been like wanted by the FBI, and you can read why.
Right.
It makes your gut just turn.
I'm sure.
And then you just see all the faces. You're like, jeez, is this what the people look like?
But see, this is weird to me, because in the 70s and 80s, there were a lot of serial killer scares, and the numbers were high. The Zodiac had a large number of victims, and Ted Bundy was in like 30s at least, right? Yeah. I don't feel like there's any modern serial killer in the last 10 years that has any numbers that we know of, and there's no scares. There's no serial killers.
It's all terrorist attacks and stuff like that.
Right, well, here's the thing. So here's my question. Has serial killing become mass murdering, and is there a difference, right? So like mass murderers... They seem to be trying to make a statement, like the guy in Las Vegas or the Unabomber or the Oklahoma City bomber. Like, I feel like serial killing's moved more towards that kind of thing and less like I'm going to dominate a region of the area and then kill a whole bunch of people here and then become legendary in this area. I don't feel like that really happens anymore that we hear of.
Yeah, I think it does. I think that so I just think that you can't get away with it in the same way that you used to be able to get away with it for long periods of time. So I don't know if people are able to kill as many people before they become a renowned serial killer. They can't kill 36 people before they get caught. So interesting. I don't know, like, if I can, but like one of the number one occupations of serial killers, truck driving.
That makes sense.
Because they can kill in multiple states,
right?
And it's easier for them to get away with it.
Constantly circulating.
Yeah. So sorry, truck drivers, but I don't trust you.
Well, what about like Casey Anthony and all those types of people? Where it's not like 30 people like Ted Bundy, but it is a scandalous. Murder trial.
Well, totally, but that's what I mean is I don't think like technology has made it so that the numbers can't get that high anymore. I think, right? Unless
I think, yeah. I mean, we guess we could get that. I mean, at some point, maybe right after this comes out, we'll probably figure out something.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, I think that most of it was the 80s and 90s, and the technology maybe got too good for them to be able to murder at that capacity.
Wasn't there also like a fight over who would be the first to bust Ted Bundy? So like everyone wanted to be the first. Like Florida's like, we're not going to give him over. We want to be the guy.
I don't know if there was a fight. I think that there were a bunch of people who were real interested in solving the murders that they had in their town. And that Florida guy, I can't remember his name, Ken.
Yeah.
He was he was gonna get him. He was like, he's mine.
Yes.
And like he was cold, like he was almost as cold-blooded as Ted Bundy. Like he gave me the creeps.
Right.
Occasionally, how much he wanted to get that guy. And like there was another guy, and I'm trying to remember. I think he was the guy that found the little girl's body in Florida, the 12-year-old. And he cried when and it was very emotional to him.
Totally.
But I felt like that Ken, I need to know the names. I don't know the names. But Ken, the guy who ended up penning it, like getting it, and he and Ted Bundy obviously had like a war going on between each other. But I really felt like
he's the one who called a press conference and made him do like a perp walk, right?
He is a psychopath, and I know that I can feel that this man is also a psychopath, and it's so interesting to me how much he hated Ted Bundy's guts,
right?
Because he was almost as shockingly evil, whatever, as Ted Bundy. You could kind of tell that this guy there was something up with him too, but in a different way.
See, so that's one of the things that I feel like all the really good true crime, like movies like Zodiac, get down to eventually is obsession, right? The idea of obsession, right? And Ted Bundy was basically obsessed because what he said was he kept thinking that every killing, which is possibly lying, right? Because I don't think that he had any ability to really explain himself. No. But he said, like, he always thought that maybe I'll be satisfied with the next one. Maybe I'll be whatever. And he didn't, so he was relentless and obsessed with getting to that goal. And then for the person that brought him down was equally upset.
Yeah. I think that serial killing, I think that it's a form, I do think it's a form of addiction where there is something that these people are getting out of murdering people. Obviously, there is a sense of power and control that they're getting. And so I do think he probably thought, okay, this one this is going to be my last one, similar to like, an alcohol. This is going to be my last drink or
Sure.
something like that.
Totally.
And it's just, it's you're never satisfied because there's something that you're getting out of this.
Right.
This action. So I think it is, I do believe him when he said that he thought this would be his last, but really knowing that he was feeling like, obviously I'm going to probably need to do this again.
Right.
Well,
so...
But murder, you're thinking, they're like, that's murder is a crazy thing to be addicted to,
Totally. So, but let's get to this explanation because the movie, like, kind of teased out the entity. Do you remember this part?
Yeah, Ted Bundy came up with that.
Right.
I loved that part.
Okay, so but that is sort of like his explaining himself, right? Like there was this thing, and it rises up, and then it's like it's an uncontrollable urge. Like, so part of it is deflecting guilt, which he didn't believe in anyway. He literally said,
"No guilt."
He literally said guilt is a way to control people. It's an illusion. Like he says that in the movie, right?
Which I think he's right.
So all right, so he's doing that. We brought the right person. So he's explaining that, but the entity kind of thing fascinated me because it means that when he's saying things like, maybe this next one would satisfy me and it'd be the last one I would do. That contradicts like there's this thing in me that I don't understand that I call the entity that drives me. Like those two things don't match.
No.
So which one is true? Probably the one where he can't figure out exactly why he's doing it, right?
Yeah, so yes. I think that my favorite part of the whole thing, it actually ended up not really satisfying me the way they carried it out. But my favorite part was when that guy was like, the only way I'm going to get this guy to talk about the murders is if I get him to talk about it in the third person. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that is so good. And then he got him to, and then, Ted Bundy put on his little psychology hat and he started talking about like, and he revealed a lot about the way murderers think. And like this is interesting to me because I think, he assisted in, solving serial killer crimes later in his life, like while he was, incarcerated.
Very Hannibal Lecter, like when they bring him the dossier.
So Hannibal Lecter. And it's one of the reasons why I don't believe in the death penalty, because I was like, man, you could have exchanged this man's ability to solve crimes and get into the mind of these people in exchange for him being able to keep his life.
Sure.
But, and it would have worked.
And he would have done anything. He was doing any stalling tactic.
He wanted to live so bad.
Which is why he confessed at the end, just because he thought that they wouldn't.
It was a last-ditch effort.
Right.
Actually, it was like a weird, like I didn't feel sorry for him in the way that you would normally feel sorry for someone, but there was something that was like, oh man, like, I don't know, just waste.
Yes, it's right, exactly, and it's hard.
For vengeance. Ugh.
And it doesn't matter how like, we're geared to feel sympathy to people who are cornered. And he was totally cornered at the end. You could see it was like watching, there's this horrible moment in Saving Private Ryan when there's this struggle and there's a guy named Opham who's a coward and there's these people fighting and this guy is stronger than the other guy and he's pressing down with a knife towards his chest and the guy's just like, no. But no's not going to stop it.
Right.
No's not going to stop it. But it's pathetic. It's the last, and Ted Bundy's like at the end and it broke his mom. Right? Like, because she thought he was innocent, and then he confessed, and she's like, I didn't raise him to be a killer, what the hell? she blew a gasket at the end.
Apple pie and ice cream. That creeped me out.
That was
we talk about how that creeped me out.
It reminds me of like something from like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like this weird ass family being like, we're all fine here.
But it was funny because it was also insight into how his mind worked because that was his mother's
flipping the switch on and off.
Yeah, she was like because he described her as like whining like on the inside, she was like kind of moaning because she was so upset on the inside, right? Something was going on,
right?
And then denial like just kicked in, and it was like, who wants apple pie and ice cream? And I was like,
seamlessly.
Oh my gosh, but that is so Ted Bundy. I think that there was part of him that really believed that he was kind of innocent. Like this entity took him over and he actually like had no control over himself.
That's interesting.
And
because there's a part in there where he says, I'm really mad at myself for having fallen into this role. He said it like a role, like he was an actor.
Yeah. Well, and that was interesting too, because the judge said something similar to him. He said, "Young man, I would have loved to have you in my courtroom." And I'm like, "What the fuck? He's a serial killer." And he was like, "I have no animosity towards you." I'm like, "You have no animosity towards him.
Oh, yeah, right.
He killed 36 women, dude. What are you talking about?" And it was this weird boys club thing that he like brought out all of a sudden. I'm like, "You're crazy too. Y'all are motherfucking crazy. This Ken guy's crazy. Ted Bundy's crazy. The judge is crazy."
You want to talk about crazy? How about the crowd outside death row?
Oh, and the women who they were interviewing,
Right?
Like
they were like the Manson clique. They were like, I'm fascinated. I can't stop watching. Like
the most interesting thing about the Ted Bundy tapes is how insane everybody is.
Right.
Like everybody around him was crazy. So was he, and it was like y'all are nuts. Like maybe society is just nuts.
So everyone's nuts and not, and the split. So I got a really Jekyll and Hyde thing, and then I went back and I watched the opening credits. And it's explicit. I think this filmmaker, and the documentary filmmaker, not the guy who got the tapes, but the Berlinger who made the documentary, he's a really respected filmmaker. He did a great documentary series called Paradise Lost. And if you go back and look at the opening credits, there's two faces for everybody, including the victims and the police. They go by. Like at the end, Ted Bundy's face, there's two facing you. One looks normal, one looks crazy. But he's doing it for like women, he's doing it for cops, he's doing it for whatever.
Cool.
Like I think that split is explicit in the message, right?
Yeah.
Like you're all crazy and you're all not. We're civilized until we're outside death row getting drunk, and then everyone's like, "Burn, Bundy, burn."
They did a really good, that was something that they did a really good job showing, sort of the, okay, yeah, this guy is a psychopath. He killed 36 women, but look at y'all fuckers like actually cheering for him to die,
Right.
getting drunk, and like you were too when he
the only
killed people.
the only defense
and, like,
for those, the only defense I have for those people is that they were stuck in Florida, so they have nothing else to do.
Sorry to all your Florida listeners.
Well, all right. Let's defend them a little
Central
harder
Florida,
though, because obviously there's a lot of eye for an eye. Like they had seen all the suffering that was in their communities, right? So obviously they took the ball and ran with it as an excuse, but there was a lot of justified rage.
I think
right?
some of the rage was justified. I think a lot of those were just kids who wanted a reason to party on a whatever night that was.
Get drunk around noon.
Yeah,
outside
I think
of
it was
prison.
a
They
game.
brought fireworks.
But I, they did, and I, people will they look for. I mean, it reminded me of like, during the Civil War, people would set up their little picnics to watch people die.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded
or like
me
the
of
guillotine
that.
or hangings in London, they would be in the public square. People would show up and.
I mean, they had picnics. These people. So I feel. I mean,
There
it's
were
literally
pins. Did you catch that? They were selling pins.
Oh, yeah, the one
of
guy
the
was-
electric chair.
of the electric
Sparky.
chair. Sparky.
Three-legged
He was
electric
like 3 legs, just like the original.
Holy shit!
Really crazy.
Where are those pins at now? How much do you think?
Oh, I can't even imagine. Like
Honestly, the guy that moved me the most was the one who cried. I told you the officer, I think, who cried when they found the little girl's body.
Yeah.
And he said, he was like, I was happy. And he was like actually kind of ashamed to have been happy, but he was like, I hope I'm never that happy again to see someone die.
that was
'Cause
one
he
of the best
witness-
lines in the whole movie.
It really was.
Yeah.
Because Ted Bundy was happy every time he killed. And then you saw another ostensibly normal human being who was happy at someone dying. And you're like, wait a minute. This is a slippery slope.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought that guy I was like, that's the only real empathy that I've seen in any of this.
Right. Good.
What I didn't expect was episode 3 to become a fucking Jason Bourne action
Yeah,
film.
let's talk about that. I love that you framed it
Jesus
that way. What was the
Christ.
thing you said that I wanted you to repeat? Because I loved how you phrased it. Do you remember?
Oh, what was it? About the museum?
You'll find it.
Yeah.
It was, but the fact that it turned into a whole action sequence, which I knew that he escaped, but I didn't know his escape was so like Dillinger-esque. Because Dillinger did the same thing. He got out of jail with a fake wooden gun that he put under a coat and convinced the people in the prison that there was a real gun. And he just walked out the front door.
It's amazing.
Right, and then you got Bundy doing the same
Are you talking about when he just jumped out the window?
Well, he jumped out the window, but in the second escape, he went into the apartment above through the ceiling, dressed in other clothes, and walked out the front door.
He's amazing. That was amazing.
Right.
That was, this is somebody who is, and the interesting thing about it was that at that time he was a serial killer already, but they didn't really know that. They just knew that this girl, he had kidnapped that girl. So he was only in jail, right, for kidnapping?
Yeah, theoretically, at that moment.
Right. Yeah, they were probably trying to pin other things on him at the time, but, he was only in jail for kidnapping, so he probably wasn't in a maximum security situation.
No, totally. So,
But then, oh my gosh, we're going to come back to whatever you said, but...
I can't find it.
Oh my gosh, when he went to Tallahassee, and he just went batshit, he just went Looney Tunes, and he killed, he killed 2 women, but he thought he killed 5 people.
Yes.
In one night.
Yes.
That is just unleashed. He went on a murder binge.
So, but let's talk about that because that didn't make sense to me. So I don't. So here's the thing. I'm a huge fan of the documentary The Staircase. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of the best movies I've ever seen, let alone nonfiction, true crime, whatever. But one of the things that I really like about that is it's really insightful. And I feel I don't know that this movie was trying to be insightful, and I don't know that it really was that insightful. No. But I think there were some things that it did that were whatever. But I don't think it was explicitly insightful. But I was left confused by several things. So first of all, that moment in time, right? So he goes in this rage spree, killing spree, he's been held back all this time, whatever. But it had been 40 days since he escaped. So why then? Right? He went all across the country. He went to the Rose Bowl. He went to Colorado. He went he literally went from the Pacific Northwest all the way to Florida and killed nobody. So why did it just all happen like that? Time?
Hunger is the best seasoning.
Wow.
Oh my God, that's a great quote though for that.
That's why he waited so long. He's like, all right.
Do you think he was trying to not? He was.
He had just escaped jail or prison, so he's probably low profile as long as he can.
I wonder if he tried to hold out.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is I don't think the movie gave us that information, but that's
a good thing. It's sort of. It didn't ask that question. He did sort of just unleash in Tallahassee.
Right.
But I just wonder if it just overtook him.
Right.
And he just, because, okay, I'm just thinking about myself, and I am not in the mindset of Ted Bundy, obviously. But, if I got out of jail for something that I had done, serially, I would try to not do that thing so that I didn't want to go back to jail. And he hated being in jail. Right. He hated being treated like everybody else. They said that.
Yep.
He hated it, and
obviously he escaped twice.
I think that it became a battle of which he kind of, did he want to be out of jail or did he want to be to murder people? You kind of have
or maybe the entity's more subconscious than that, and it just
obviously
maybe I don't know.
Right? No, I think that it probably was because it really takes something to just.
Well, the first escape he jumped, 25 feet from the window?
Yeah.
And just jumped down and ran 25 feet.
And then go into the mountains, right?
The mountains was the...
That was crazy.
Mountains was the second escape. Because that's where they found him. First escape?
No, first was mountains. That's when he lost all the weight. And then the second escape was when he went through the ceiling.
And then the second one, he just carved a hole in the ceiling.
Right, it was amazing. So, but here's another thing that the movie left me confused. Where I'm I don't know if this movie knows what it's doing here for this element, or if it cares, or if it wants you to be confused, which is possible, right? So, we keep getting presented with how smart he is, right? The judge says it, everyone, but a lot of the people in the movie are explicitly quoted saying he's very intelligent, right?
Yes.
So, but here's the thing, that the time that he gets arrested in Florida, so he's a terrible driver, as Nick.
That's what I said. I keep saying.
That was annoying. I was like, dude, be a better driver.
That was his downfall as a killer.
Getting pulled over, and that was your...
Twice.
Right?
Both times.
Oh my God.
But here's the thing. The second time... So put in Mads Mikkelsen, whatever you say his name, his Hannibal character into this scenario and play it out in your heads, right?
Yeah.
You're driving down the street, a cop pulls you over, they have no idea who you are, you have fake ID on you. what do you do? So what Mads Mikkelsen would do is he would coolly hand over the ID, have a conversation with the cop, take a ticket, and move on to more killing. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Ted Bundy freaks out, tries to flee in a VW bug, then resists arrest unsuccessfully because he weighs 150 pounds, and then they have to put him in jail under serious charges where he's trapped until they identify him. So he blew that, like in a dumb way. If I understand how that all went down, right? So his intelligence, I'm skeptical of for things like that.
That's what I thought. Like, Ted Bundy's gotten pulled over more than me. Clearly, I'm superior to Ted Bundy.
I think. Well, I've gotten pulled over twice, but I didn't get a ticket either time.
Yeah.
See?
Didn't get arrested either time, so...
Exactly. That's what
he must have. I mean, do you think that there must have been something weird and subconscious in there that you're getting.
I think people are getting
driving.
genius confused with charming, because he was just a charming guy, right? Like there's.
Well, he was really articulate. He had a psychology degree.
He was unstable.
Right.
So you can be, pseudo intelligent and charming and also unstable doing dumb shit that's going to get you pulled over. So because the one time he was driving with his lights off and I'm like, why is this motherfucker driving with his lights off? But that's with
criminal merchandise in the car
him.
Did you catch the actual his first girlfriend, not the one he eventually married, but his girlfriend out in the real world before jail? She had said she would go to his house and then she found a bowl full of house keys and then a bag full of women's underwear.
Yeah.
Come on,
God, dude.
This is not an evil mastermind.
But I think that that is the sign of somebody who is mentally ill, and I feel like I read a little bit more. I was reading a little bit about him, and his grandmother was actually very mentally ill. She was treated they even back then they didn't have very good treatment for mentally ill people, but she had shock therapy. I think they speculated that she was bipolar potentially. His grandfather was violent, and there was some speculation among the family that he may have raped Ted Bundy's mother, and that's because they didn't know. She kept changing her story, I think, about who the real father was. So he may have been the product of some incest too. So
now he's coming out that handsome.
Some stuff. And what's interesting? This is not in the documentary, I don't think. But so maybe it was in the documentary. I'm trying to remember. But when he found out that he was illegitimate when he was 14. And remember they talked about that. They talked about the fact that he was like, oh, it's not a big deal. It didn't bother me.
Right.
Well, it's very possible that his first murder was when he was 14.
Oh, no kidding.
There was a young girl who disappeared, and she just happened, she was 8 years old. Mm-hmm. She just happened to be on his paper route. Oh. And now he alluded to the fact in one of his interviews that there were murders that he would never admit to because they were just too bad.
Right.
And that was really interesting to me, just because I feel like this is somebody who is not, there's just so much broken about his brain.
Right.
There's just if you're a product of incest, you have a grandmother who is extremely potential incest. You have a grandfather who is violent and abusive potentially, right, and has a porn stash that he found when he was 3 or 4.
Right.
And you have a grandmother who is mentally ill, potentially bipolar, undergoing all kinds of treatment for her mental illness. And then you couple that with they kind of talked about in the film that he was not really accepted by the people around him.
Right.
He was pretty much an outcast, even though he kind of deluded himself that he wasn't.
Right.
So this is, and all of those things were coping mechanisms.
Right. Well, he was now that you're saying that, I realize that he was self-sabotaging in all of the phases. So he was self-sabotaging as a political activist. Yep. Right?
Oh, yeah.
He was self-sabotaging as a serial killer, i.e. he can't drive. And he was self-sabotaging as a lawyer representing himself, i.e. as every time they came up with a good legal argument, he blew it up. Right? So
yes,
maybe he, in some sense, wanted to be caught or or dealt with or something, right? Because he was very self-sabotaging.
I don't know that he even knew what he wanted because everything contradicted itself.
Right.
You know, the creepiest part of that whole thing, though, can I say this?
Jump right in.
Oh my gosh. When he cross-examined, was it the coroner?
Yep.
Did anybody Nick and I were literally watching it. We were just, like, with our hands, like, peeking through our eyes peeking through our fingers because it was so disturbing that they were letting him cross-examine the coroner. He kept asking the same questions over and over again about how this guy found the body, what state the bodies were in when he found them. Like, clearly he was getting off on this, and the jury was like, they all looked like they were all looked constipated. They were like, oh my God.
They're like shifting around their seats.
Yeah, they all looked like they had hemorrhoids.
Is it getting hot in here? Can we crack a window?
So, I mean, I'm watching this, and I'm like, why are these people letting this man just completely obliterate him? So, I don't know. It was just...
Right, and that's one of the things to me that became really interesting in terms of what holds people back and what doesn't hold people back, right? So here's a weird analogy, right? Mm-hmm. I'm playing a first-person shooter video game, right? If you're on a team, like one of the best things to do is go find a place that's really safe, hide in it, and then when someone comes around the corner, just blow them away. And that way, every time they try to come around that corner, they'll hesitate, which throws off their rhythm.
That tactic, George, is called camping. It's very cheap.
Right, okay, exactly. But every time they turn the corner, now they're going to turn it a little more slowly, right?
Yeah.
So it throws their rhythm off, and it makes them one step slower than you, right? Yeah. So he wasn't fettered by guilt or conscience or anything, and everyone else he was dealing with was. So maybe it wasn't just that maybe it wasn't that he was so intelligent. Maybe it was he just wasn't held back by things that hold other people back, right? Like other people, like guilt, right? Exactly.
He didn't hesitate.
No,
it's not like he just put on the thing. He was like, "What do I need to do to get out of here?" He did it. What do I do to get out of here? He did it.
Right.
No questions asked.
Exactly.
Whereas me,
right?
People pleaser, I'd be like, "Excuse me, can I borrow your uniform? I'm trying to leave."
I mean, he abducted 2 women in broad daylight. Like, how could that, in the middle of a busy
mall,
park,
in
a mall,
the one girl,
how can that be? How can you, like, why would you do that? There are so many other ways to catch people. Like, I don't know, and maybe he was playing with fire a little bit. You know, right. Maybe there was some thrill in that for him. That I don't know.
But that's the thing is, like, anyone who can like do all this mayhem and then go to the Rose Bowl because it's their alma mater's playing. Yeah. That level of coldness means that he's never going to be one step slower in terms of that instinct of he's going to go do what he wants. You know what I mean? Like, and what he wanted was to kill. Yeah. And other people wanted to arrest him, but they had to follow the rules and they had to do the procedures and they had to do
everything by the books.
Right, exactly, and that was what was holding them back, right? And they that was another thing I thought was why that obsessed detective, he became the same speed as Ted Bundy in terms of his response. He was like, forget the rules, forget this, forget that, forget you're not supposed to have a press conference in front of people. I'm gonna I'm just gonna do it because this is our case and I'm gonna win it. Mm-hmm. Right? He said he was like almost sick with anxiety when they went to try the case and to get the verdict, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a slam dunk case. Why are you nervous? but he was really, really nervous because he was obsessed with it.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I find that interesting. So I have a question for everybody. One of the things I really liked about the staircase was the fact that it was about a killer, but it was about so many other things.
Potential killer. We are divided on this.
Right, I know we are definitely divided on this. But so it's about a potential killer, right? But it's also about how family will stand by you no matter what, and they're blind to your flaws. It's about the fact that that area of North Carolina where it took place was really rural. They were very judgmental of his bisexual lifestyle. Mm-hmm. The authority figures were against like the fact that made them more zeal were prosecuting him. It was about class. It was about all these other topics. So this Ted Bundy documentary is about Ted Bundy. What else was it about?
I really don't think that there was a lot of good theme pulling inside of this documentary. I think that interesting, and it did cool chronological stuff, and it was cool.
Right.
But I don't feel like it's like going to withstand the test of time in any sense of,
I think it'll hold up pretty well. I mean, most other documentaries about famous killers, like as notorious as him, don't have the luxury of having 100 hours of tape of him talking.
Right, but like,
most of it was junk.
Where's the
I don't need a theme with the serial killer. You're a fucking serial killer. I just want to hear you talk.
You do though, like you want. I mean, it didn't say anything.
Right.
I don't think it said anything about. I mean, okay, like. I mean, it's not different than watching Unsolved Mysteries, but I mean, it's like a solved mystery. So, like, I don't know. It's like...
Right, it's a glorified Unsolved Mysteries is the worst thing you could say about it. And I think that I sort of agree with that, right? Like, it's put together really well and all that stuff. But here's the thing that I told Nick was, when you look at something like Making a Murderer or Serial or Staircase, one of the things I think they might accidentally benefit from is... Like in the Staircase, he basically did 2 murders, I think, and then
2?
And then he did nothing else.
Who's the
except
second one?
For remember back in Germany, the other lady down the staircase is
oh, that's right. He did have the misfortune of having two people close to
two
him.
major women in his life ended the bottom of staircases.
Oh,
but whatever. So the thing is that it's, to me, it's if you look at that was the event, is the killing, and then they teased out all this other stuff, but meanwhile they're doing really mundane stuff. Like Michael Peterson was basically spending the rest of his life trying not to go to jail for those 2 crimes.
right.
Ted Bundy was basically doing doing like Bourne stuff. Like, there was so much to his life that the documentary had to be sort of like pulpy, right? It had to be sort of like, it couldn't do that like subtle psychology stuff because it had to fit in so much stuff. It had to fit in his escapes. It had to fit in his representing himself. It had to fit in his blaming.
Had to whittle down 100 hours of tape too.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
I
hours.
have to tell you, and this like, I think that the lack of whatever depth this documentary had is actually I think it's actually Ted Bundy's fault. Of all the serial killers that have ever existed, he's not the most interesting to me.
Interesting.
And the reason is because it's kind of easy to kill people when you're charming and kind of good looking and like, oh, you're kind of a politician-y type vibe. And, it's not hard for me to imagine a politician type person as a serial killer.
Well, that was the whole Kevin Spacey thing, right? Like,
right.
He in House of Cards season 1, he's like, meets someone, they meet him, they don't think anything's wrong, and he pushes them in front of the subway because they don't expect it.
Right.
From him.
Right.
Right.
He's somebody who, I feel like he's easy. Like, I get it. Like, I watch it and I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting, but like, overall, Ted Bundy is not that interesting. I'm actually more, like, I think John Wayne Gacy, the clown killer, I thought, or he was a clown and a serial killer. Yes. He was kind of interesting. Jeffrey Dahmer was more interesting to me because he was not your typical, like, I don't know. I mean, he wasn't as smart as Ted Bundy either, but he broke into the White House and got a tour of the White House.
Crazy.
I think that's interesting.
Right.
Just by calling in and saying that he wanted a tour, he got a tour of the White House.
Right.
I think that's interesting, and I think it's interesting too that he didn't blame it on anyone. He said he did it, and his dad was there, and he loved his dad. I don't know, but like Ted Bundy, man, like
he's pretty vanilla.
He's like very clearly mentally ill. Like when you watched him in the courtroom, I'm like, this is somebody who's got something going on. And they would say that I think, I can't remember if they said it in the document. I'm like, don't remember what I'm reading and because I read a lot after the documentary because I wanted to know
it's all starting to blend together.
It's all blending together. But I remember I read that people would sit with him and he would kind of he would all of a sudden switch. His personality for 20 minutes would completely change.
Right.
And that is very symptomatic of somebody who's, bipolar or some variation of a bipolar.
Right, or their eyes go black while they're talking. That's what they
said, right? Like, so that is, I mean, I think that there were times where people felt like he really switched over into something else. And I don't know, I don't find him to be that interesting.
Well, his
lack of depth kind of contributed to the.
It's his fault.
I do think the interesting parts were all the other people talking.
Agreed.
Like when you hear the Ted Bundy tapes, you're like, wow, a serial killer. Like you get to
Right.
hear him talking about it, that's gonna be interesting. And then you listen to it and you're like, it's okay.
Right.
But hearing the stories behind it were way more interesting. Than
the
whatever you
other
said.
the people the survivor.
Oh, that was crazy.
Right. The
Yeah.
ex-girlfriend, and then the whole police, even the lawyers who were defending him at the end, who were like really defending the shit out of him. Like they were really trying to get it done for him. Like
Much to
all
his
those people were
chagrin.
really interesting. Yeah, all those people were really interesting. Like the way that was presented. I think the documentary is really good. I think it will hold up. I think there's more subtlety in it than a lot of people are giving it credit for online, but I think, to me, the major flaw of the documentary is that it pinned its hopes on the wrong main message. I think
Tapes.
the tapes. Right, you're right, and the main message is what it ended on. Right, so like the staircase, what the staircase ends on is they take the guy who may be the killer, and he's reading out of Shakespeare at the end, and he reads the line, "Everybody is punished." And that's the message of the staircase, is whether he's innocent or guilty, whatever, everyone in his radius was punished by his existence, whether he's innocent or not, right? And that's a powerful message that you can work backwards from, and when you think back after watching it. The message, the way this documentary ended, was Ted Bundy going, someone could be good looking, someone you admire, they could be your best friend right next door, and they could be a killer. That is not an interesting message, and it's what the movie ended on. That was literally the last moment. So they think that that's the message.
But that's what made Ted Bundy compelling. I mean, here's the thing. That is all he had going for him in terms of what's compelling about it. That's why I don't find him to be that interesting. Oh, he's charming and good looking and and he kills people.
You weren't saying that when you saw Zac Efron, though. You were like, Zac Efron.
Oh, yeah, we got to get to that.
Yeah. But no, I agree. I mean, I think actually the Shockingly Evil movie or whatever, I think that is going to be a much more interesting interpretation of Ted Bundy's life. Potentially.
Right.
Because I mean, Zac Efron playing that role, that means that, I don't know, I think that's actually going to raise, what's going to be the most interesting is the questions, or are the questions that raises to society, because people are like, Ted Bundy is, especially now that a sex symbol, Zac Efron is playing Ted Bundy. Right. It's raising this interesting question of, because you guys remember in the documentary, and they were interviewing those girls who were fangirling over Ted Bundy, and I thought that was so fascinating. And then now I'm seeing all these articles about Netflix doesn't want you to think that Ted Bundy's hot, and I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. Right. I mean, but
he's fucking dead.
But people,
who cares?
People, and it's not just women; it's everyone. But people think that these vile human. I mean, it's I don't know, and it to me, it's what made Ted Bundy a good killer, in quotations. Zac Efron's doing it for that shock, because there are women who Zac Efron could be a serial killer, and he would totally be able to get away with a lot of murder because he's so good looking, charming, etc., etc. And I think
that's the same thing that the House that Jack built plays with. The Von Trier movie, because it's a good looking Hollywood actor, and he's playing whatever, and it's just you just trick people into letting down their guard just enough so that
I never got to see it, but I heard a lot of people were upset by that one. Was it the fake? Yeah. Was it fake outrage though? If people walking out?
No, they were legitimately upset. It's a brutal movie.
But it could have examined. It could have taken it a step further, I think, with kind of talking about the perfect predator, or
They've already made that movie. It's called Predator.
So here's the thing. What I think.
No, it's called Twilight.
Wow.
Just kidding.
So no, it's called Jaws. So what I think though is I think that makes sense what you're saying. I think it's better than that because it's such a great time capsule chronicle of the bigger situation that it was in, and that it was smart enough to know that it needed that.
Yeah.
And not just the Bundy tapes part, right?
Because that would have been just excruciating.
Right. If it was just
again.
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
I absolutely watch it again because here's the thing, like that what's
I would
interesting
never
to me
watch it again.
in between the seams of like the main parts of the story, there's all these little details. Like I don't remember how many times it happened, but one reason I would watch it again is I got fascinated by how many people were fixated on his hands. Because different people who didn't even say it to each other were thinking it. It was like their biggest moment. Captain Ahab, the prosecutor, the one you were, I can't think of his name, but that one, who was going to spear Ted Bundy no matter what. He when they came to him at the end, they were like, he was a witness during the electric chair thing, and he was like, they threw the switch and his hand tightened on the chair, and I thought to myself, how many times did that hand do that on throats?
Oh,
right.
Yes,
and then other people said it, and the fact that if people independently, it's like when scientists invent the same thing across the world at the same time, but they haven't talked to each other. Mm-hmm. All these people are having the same kind of thoughts, and I feel like the documentary was rich enough to capture enough of that, where if you went back and rewatched, you'd catch patterns of things that are interesting that are happening in it.
It's just not compelling enough. It's like
almost it's because
there.
Ted Bundy's not compelling enough to you. But I feel like if you made that documentary with that format about Jeffrey Dahmer, that would be interesting to you.
Well, I mean, because I loved My Friend Dahmer, and that movie was really good. And then the book, I read the graphic novel, and I mean, yes, but I mean, God, isn't it weird that to me, My Friend Dahmer, which is just a guy who went to high school with Jeffrey Dahmer, did a better job of examining a serial killer?
And is it weird that I think the Ed
Ted
Kemper
Bundy
sequence of Mindhunter did a better job of explaining Ted Bundy type behavior than this Ted Bundy documentary?
And is it weird that I think it's strange that the Golden State blew a 3-1 lead?
Damn it, Golden State.
No, I do agree with the My Friend Dahmer being more interesting. Would I watch?
It's a serial killer movie without murder. That is so cool.
Here's what I think. I would watch a movie. I'm excited for the Zac Efron movie, but the whole time I was watching episode 3, I was thinking to myself, I would totally watch a film just about the 2 escapes from prison. I don't need to see any of the bloodiness. It would be.
Well, you gotta watch Escape at Dannemora because that's also on Netflix and it's amazing. Or maybe it's Hulu. It's Hulu.
Will that fill my void of prison escapes?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a great.
God, I was gonna say something about Making a Murderer because I really like that docuseries as well. And one of the things that I found, Making a Murderer, it had really good, it was talking about like a social issue at large, this, how people in these kind of small towns get pinned, with something, and there's really no way that they can get out of it. And it was saying something.
Yeah.
And I have no clue. I think that we could have said something like what we were talking about, how everybody was crazy.
I think it couldn't do it because there was too much shit they had to fit in. Because Ted Bundy's life was there was too much. Yeah. I think but I think you're right. I believe me.
They
I don't.
Could have.
I think, and you know what's funny is coming full circle to the fact that the credits had that Jekyll and Hyde split thing going on with the face or whatever. Like when you think about it, this documentary is really by 2 people. It's by the journalist who made the tapes and the documentary who filmed it. Mm-hmm. So it's also split.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. And I don't think when you're divided against yourself that you're going to have that A++, product come out of it.
Yeah, it was kind of like a popcorn watch for me.
Right.
And I'm kind of done. Fair. What would be interesting is now if we explored other killers and other types of psychopaths or something, and why does it just the Ted Bundy tapes? I want other people.
Right.
Because we went at the Museum of Death, just to come around full circle real quick, the Museum of Death, they had John Wayne Gacy's, he had these little interview questions, and I was totally fascinated by it because they were squeaky clean little interview questions that he had filled out, and they asked him who were his heroes, and he put down John F. Kennedy and Donald Trump, and I just thought that is a story that I want to. I want to hear this other guy's delusional. So I want to hear more about other people. watch that again.
That makes sense.
In terms of like the production of the documentary, I think because Netflix has a bunch of like serial killer like documentary stuff that's just super fucking boring. Like this was entertaining. I wanted to keep going through it. Like if they could take that formula of how well it was produced with other killers, I would watch as many as they could.
I think it could be I think standalone, it's just okay. I think if you paired it with other serial killer, if they continued it, I think that could be really cool to take different. I mean, but maybe the production value is just too. I mean, it's too.
It was pretty polished, so it probably takes some time.
It would take some time to do. Out. Yeah, exactly.
And
it's not really fast and dirty type of.
Well, the last secret interesting thing that I had that I think snuck in here was there's a thing in a book I was reading. It's called The Survivor. It's about Bill Clinton, and it's talking about how everyone, almost anyone that was in his, it made the point at the end that he has almost no friends in his life that he were friends with him 20 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And they asked why, and they said because he's exhausting. He's exhausting.
Bill Clinton?
He's exhausting to be around. You get close to him, and then it's exhausting because
it's fascinating.
Because you're trying because there's so many lies and there's so much.
He's a psychopath,
right? But they said the leading characteristic of being a friend or acquaintance of Bill Clinton is that it's being exhausting. Whether that's true or not, it's the point, right? Mm-hmm. And that happened in this documentary a lot. At the end, they interviewed the guy who did the tapes himself. He was like, I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. I was so sick of his lies. I was so sick of. I wanted him. He literally said, I wanted Ted Bundy in my rearview mirror because he's exhausting, right?
Yeah.
So I find that element of being exhausting by all of the manipulation and all of the. I mean, he's doing all these grand manipulations, but for what? To gain like another year of life in a jail cell to do like whatever. Like eventually, it becomes exhausting.
I want the Bill Clinton documentary. The Bill Clinton tapes.
There actually is a great CNN documentary on the whole Clinton Lewinsky period. It just came out, but I forget what the name of it is, or I'd say it. But
it was called. I don't think we can get that out.
I want to hear from his friends.
Sorry.
I want to hear from Bill Clinton's friends.
Right. But that's what that to me that I think that is what will make this documentary something that can be revisited later. Is that you'll come back and be like, wait, I just found out that this new serial killer that came out, they interviewed all the people around him, and they were like, the person is exhausting. Wait, where did I hear that before? And it's in this, right? Yeah. So I think it has that going for it. But also, we're also time traveling now because we got, Manson, the Tarantino Manson movie coming out.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right.
Which
One of the Manson ladies is trying to get out of jail right now. There's a couple Manson people that are going to potentially get out of jail.
Left. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's 69 years old, and she was 19 at the time of the murders, and she's trying to get out of jail. They're thinking she might get out.
That's weird.
That's crazy.
Just in time for the premiere.
Yeah.
But I feel like all of my cinematic experiences for January 2019 are all sepia, like 70s sepia.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. Yeah. No, it's funny.
Like, what the hell?
Did we touch...
Maybe it's just been enough time.
Yeah.
And it's time to revisit.
Yep.
You know, I think there's it's just been enough time that we everybody's dead and gone and whatever, or maybe not, or old or something, and it's time to.
Well, I want to ask you about
right, because Mindhunter's that Fincher brown, yellow, green.
Mindhunter, man, we need season 2 so
we
bad.
We do.
I want season 2.
I could almost rewatch season 1 right now. I want to ask you because we didn't really touch base on the Ted Bundy sex symbol thing. But also, I asked a friend if he was going to watch the series, and he was like, I don't know, they're glorifying serial killers.
No.
Yeah, I was like, No, you have to be a kind of a dum-dum to watch that and be like, wow, they're making this look so great. I'm going to go out there and just chop up a bunch of people.
So is Dexter, the TV show?
No, Dexter's because Dexter's got a theme song. Dexter's different.
I mean, I just don't buy that. I think that there will always be people who are crazy enough to think a serial killer is hot. That's not new. They did that in the 70s. They were being interviewed by, or I guess I think it was the 70s, right, or the 80s. Whatever. They did that back then.
Whenever he was captured, because everyone was always
fangirling over him back then. I have to sneak this in there. because I swear to God, did you guys? Okay, so the guy who was Ted Bundy's friend, was he or was he not in love with Ted Bundy? Because I am so sure that he had a giant heart-on for Ted Bundy because he kept talking. He was like, he's the kind of guy that you'd want your sister to marry.
Yeah.
And did you hear him?
Yeah.
And he was like, I haven't really processed it yet. I'm like, dude, it's been a long time. You should have processed this by now. He's like going to have his ashes scattered in the same, crazy mountains that Ted Bundy was scattered in. Which he was, okay, last thing. He was freaking, his ashes were scattered where he murdered people.
Yep.
Where he would revisit the bodies.
I think that's, I had asked what the message of this movie is. I think that's the message. I think it's the same message that I had said before about everyone around Bill Clinton's exhausting. I think this guy was toxic. And it was, matter of fact, someone in the movie said he, like a bad cold, he kept coming back into my life.
Wow.
Like now his ashes are just mingled with the ashes of his victims because he's toxic. I think that's
heck, though?
right.
I mean, that
if they honored that wish,
there were a couple of they did.
Yeah, I would have just
There
tossed
were a
it in the
couple
trash.
I would have Big
you.
Lebowski'd that. So
I ain't hiking up this.
no doubt. Come on, man.
Put him in a coffee can. Yeah, I mean, I thought there were a couple moments in that were actually just really creepy to me, and that was the final one that he was scattered where his victims were laid to rest, and I was like, that is not right.
Okay, question for both of you: which killer in history would you like to see get this level of production documentary?
Oh, come on. I mean, I want Jack the Ripper. But can we solve it, please?
Please.
Please. I want John Wayne Gacy. I want Jeffrey Dahmer. I want, there's some others. That Fish guy, that was
Albert
weird.
Fish?
Yeah, but he's not really interesting. He was kind of just
He's
weird.
just a fucking
Yeah,
weirdo,
weird.
dude. He liked to...
Yeah, never mind.
He was weird.
Not him. I can't even think of any others. I'm interested in John Wayne Gacy and Jeffrey Dahmer for whatever reason.
Those two come to my mind
There's
first.
a doctor who was
What about your guy?
H.H. Holmes?
Yeah.
Oh, but he's getting a lot of
That's
airtime
coming, right?
lately.
That's a movie about him.
It's been...
I think maybe
hopefully sometime soon. Something wicked,
We'll
vile,
see.
hopefully it comes.
Well, maybe this will spur it into the
Yeah.
Zac Efron movie.
This
will
probably
spur
will.
it into production.
Well,
yeah.
you'd have the House that Jack built and then the Zac Efron movie.
Well, House of Jack
House-
Bill, I don't think succeeded that much.
Yeah, but it's still there.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood comes out, they'll have this, all the Zac Efron, and they'll be like, what other serial killer? And then people are like, well, do we have a film for you? You have no idea what's about to come out.
What about that Cleveland Strangler guy?
They did a great documentary on that. Something about sleep.
That's right.
It was actually really
The
good.
Strangler. We did watch an Unsolved Mysteries episode where in the 1930s.
Elizabeth Short.
Elizabeth Short, who's that?
This is Black Dahlia.
Oh, yeah, the torso killer, the Cleveland.
That's the one.
The torso guy.
De Palma did a good movie on that.
I would like to see that. I'm excited for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, me too.
That's gonna be a good one. But I do think I'm good with one viewing. I would probably watch episode 3 again. I've never watched a full Bourne Identity film, but I felt like I watched 7 of them in that one episode.
They need a little shaky cam, and it would have been
shaky cam, and then that's it. Quick cuts, shaky cam, and then it's perfect. But
it would have been good.
So
well, this was awesome. I am glad that Alex joined us, and I feel like we should do more nonfiction reviews.
And for the listeners, let us know what killers. If there's any famous killers, or if there's a movie or documentary you want us to talk about, we have our serial killer expert Alex with us.
Yes.
What?
That was fun. You looked at me like a serial killer when I said that.
I did not.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what a serial killer would say.
Oh, boy.
Okay, Alex Dahmer.
All
All
right.
right.
So much you can say about serial killers, I think, before you start rehashing the same points over and over again.
That is true.
That's true. But I've got a thirst for nonfiction reviews now, so we'll be back to this.
Well, me and George were floating around the idea of seeing Free Solo and doing an episode about it because we were terrified of heights.
That's right. That's a personal.
I watched the trailer for that. My hands get sweaty. I can't fucking do it.
That's a personal one. We got to torture ourselves by seeing it on screen.
I'm a vomit. Well, that was fun. Well, thank you for finally joining us for an episode that we will actually air. Because I think you did an episode with us before, and I think we didn't air for something like that, or maybe it was the.
That was when we had first started.
We were
figuring
figuring
it
it
out.
out. We didn't even. It was so long ago.
I barely remember.
But I'm glad you finally came on.
I'm glad that I'm here.
This was fun.
Yeah.
We'll have to do more of these.
Yes.
You like scary movies?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Well, yeah.
Depends. I like good scary movies.
Good scary movies.
But I guess that's
the lady who
that's
directed the
subjective.
Babadook. Guess who she's working with to make a new movie?
Tell me.
Del Toro. Tell me that next one is gonna be straight fire.
It's gonna be good.
It's gonna be real good.
Cool.
So whatever that comes about.
Cool.
I'm excited. All right, well let's wrap this up. Thank you for joining us. This was a fun one. Until next time, stay scary. Watch a bunch of horror movies. Bye, guys.
Bye.